And we are live. Welcome to Connections Unplugged from LinkedIn to Live. In my video podcast series, I'm streaming live to 3 destinations: LinkedIn, of course, Facebook, and YouTube. And this show is powered by OneStream Live that enables me to do just that. And I must say a couple of words about this podcast series that has been on my mind for a long time now. And eventually this year, I made it happen. I have amazing LinkedIn connections, more than 5,000 inspirational people, professionals that I'm connected to on LinkedIn, which is my favorite social media platform. And I wanted to pick their brains, get to know them on a different level, not only on the professional level, but also go to their psyche and a personal level as well. So that's what the idea of Connections Unplugged started. I'm streaming live every week, introducing to you one of my LinkedIn connections at a time, one person, one story at a time. And I want my guests that in this 30 to 40 minute discussion with me to feel free to say the story the way they like it to be told. This is completely unplugged, unscripted. I haven't given them any questions in advance. So I think they're all good sports and they can answer to anything. So thank you for tuning in and listening today. I have the great pleasure to welcome in the studio Mr. Saleem Qureshi. Welcome, Saleem.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Saleem, you are also an inspirational person. I'm happy to be connected to you. We recently got in touch. You have your own strong following on LinkedIn. More than 14,000 people are connected to you. You are an influencer. I must say that your headline reads there, AI and Innovation Leader, Scaling Business with AI. And in your about section, you write that you love taking big risks and investing in anything related to the brain. So you have so much to tell. You are an entrepreneur, a founder, a man that travels every 3 years to a different country. And now you have found yourself in Finland. We are both Finland-based at the moment. I want to go back in time and ask you about your childhood. What kind of child little Saleem was? If we were to analyze your brain at that childhood era, what was going on inside your brain? Tell us a little bit where you grew up and how was little Saleem like?
Well, I must confess, I don't think I've grown up. So. I'm still that child.
You're still that child.
I'm still that child, yeah. So I've had a very unique kind of a childhood. My mom was from Pakistan, my dad was from India, so fortunately there's not a lot of infighting at home. But I grew up, the first part of my life was in Egypt, and then we traded the pyramids and we moved to Southern Africa, to Zambia. We traded the pyramids for the safari, and I was there for a little while. And then because my father's work, he was in the international banking arena. And then when I was growing up, I moved to the US, so wanted to live the American dream. And my first degree was in finance, but then I got bored of finance, so I started studying medicine, and then that's how I got into the brain. And our first startup that we had was based out of the Middle East. We sold that, and my second startup was based out of Singapore, and we were living in Singapore. We were traveling back and forth to Philippines, and then we sold that. And then in 2017, my wife and I, we thought, okay, we've had enough of working. We need to do something a little more, relaxed. So we decided to retire. So we retired early in 2017. And when we were thinking about where do we... Well, I think I was 40 years old. Yeah. Yeah, about 7 years ago. Yeah, 40 years old. Yeah.
Many people they want to retire by the time they're 40. Everybody might have their own timeline ahead, but you've done it with your wife. And then what happened? What did you want it to do for fun? How has your life been unfolding since that decision and that time?
Well, one of the reasons why we wanted to retire was because so once we retired, we were lost. We didn't know what to do, right? So we thought, okay, what should we do? What should we be doing now? And we, we sat down with a piece of paper and pen, and we said, okay, what's most important for us? What have we not done yet? And then we realized that we have two beautiful daughters, and they should be our next startup. So we wanted to choose a place where the food was good, the music was loud, the people were nice, and we looked on the map and we said, okay, Istanbul. That's not a bad place. So it's full of life, full of character, and we moved to Istanbul.
For
so
a moment, I was waiting for you to say we chose Finland. I was wondering.
Yeah, but then I think
yes.
yeah, after living in Istanbul for a little while, we were getting bored. Sometimes heaven is boring. So fortunately, at that point in time, we received an invitation from Business Finland to explore Helsinki. And we came over here and said, okay, you know what? Helsinki or Finland has a lot of potential. And then, that's how our journey in Finland started in 2022, about 3 years ago.
Invitation? What was how have you been invited? What were you doing back then?
Okay, so we were experimenting on our third venture, which is in the education space, and Finland has all of these really interesting programs through which they invite entrepreneurs over here. There's I've forgotten the exact name of the program, but it was one of the entrepreneurship programs, one of the startup programs. Mm-hmm. And that's the one we came in through. There's this amazing place over here called the Helsinki Education Hub, and they were looking for successful or startups that had quite a bit of potential to move forward with, and that's how we came over here. And we came here right in the dead of winter, and we didn't mind it as much, so I guess we came in when it was really, really cold. So when the summer came, we really started enjoying Finland.
I can share a little bit here below. You can see everybody who is tuning in and watching Saleem.fi, and I can bring the website here to my screen. You can tell us a little bit, because you mentioned about the startups you've been involved in, and what is currently your passion and your initiatives? Because you do here, we see your website. You're very active in so many things, from AI-driven solutions to raising kids and empowering kids with the power of AI. Tell us a little bit, what is now the focus point of your work?
Okay, so the confusing thing is I don't really have a focus point. Right. I've always been obsessed with technology, and I've always had a gadget around me at every point in time. And, I'm the type of person who, when I walk past something, I notice that there's a problem, and then I cannot sleep until I figure out how to solve that particular problem. So whether that problem is my own, or whether that problem is, of a friend that I have, but I like to be a problem solver. So I always go into this detective mode, and it's, because my background is in medicine, so it's like a doctor, but I always have a stethoscope around me, always trying to check things. What's the temperature here? What's the heartbeat over here? What's the pulse over here? But instead of prescribing medication, I prescribe algorithms, because that's my passion, AI.
So AI solutions. AI has been now on the lips of almost everybody, but I guess you were on the pulse of what was happening or started to happen decades ago. Tell us a little bit how you found yourself. You said you're a problem solver, you want to bring solutions. When did you realize that AI is the next big thing?
Okay. So the ecosystem that I'm coming from the Palo Alto ecosystem, from the Stanford ecosystem, AI, the word AI has been around for several decades. In fact, before it was called AI, it was called computer vision. And, you know, being in that ecosystem and having friends who are from within that ecosystem, the word AI was very, very normal for us, even in 2005, 2007. And at that point in time, AI had a different functionality. So if I get a little technical, it was more like rule-based algorithms, right? So it was a set of instructions. But what AI has become now, it's become like X-ray glasses, right? So you could look right through and figure out exactly, how the architecture of anything is. And as a problem solver, my main goal is to put on, these X-ray glasses and look at, a picture and see exactly where the problems are, and then figure out what kind of AI tool can be used to solve that particular problem. So that's what I really, really like doing. And I started doing this for my own kids first, right? So my kids are growing up. One is 14, and the younger one is 9 years old. And my goal over here was to try to see how they can be competitive in their in their careers. So we got them started off early in all kinds of technologies and all kinds of stuff. And because we're always entertaining at our place, and we are always entertaining people who have businesses. So there's always shop talk taking place at our place. Mm-hmm. And my kids are always a part of that. So they always start picking up these terminologies and stuff. And then they came to me with a problem, and their problem was that teens have so many questions, but parents just don't have the time for them. And I said, okay, if that's the problem, so if the parents are not available, what kind of questions do you have, and how can we use AI to solve that? And lo and behold, they took a course which we developed for them, and 3 months later, they launched their own AI startup.
But how about, I want to be the devil's advocate, and this is a question that's been on my mind as a person who I believe I'm tech savvy, but on the other hand, I'm a mother, and I'm just wondering about the human race in general. What do you think about this human centricity and families together? How can we make AI help the parents really dedicate their time? Time is money, and time is important to build that connection with your children and with your friends and with your colleagues. How can we use the AI to really bring the people more together rather than having just another AI-driven solution? What is your take on human centricity, putting people first versus putting the technology first and delegating parenting, if you like, to another AI solution? We might solve some problems. I'm busy, everybody's busy, I need to cook, I need to clean, but I also feel that we have the need to connect with our children, to talk to them. This is how we transmit the culture, the values. Yeah. I believe we cannot outsource just everything to technology. It has its perils. What is your take on this?
Okay, so you've raised a very, very important question, which is actually a hot topic these days I think, in all kinds of circles. So the way we look at parenting is that there's nothing more important to us than our kids. And spending time for our kids is paramount. This is one of the reasons why we retired early. But at the same time, we need to understand how to live in the age of AI. How do you become a human in the age of AI? That's the main question, that we need to answer. And then I think that every parent or every household has their own rules and regulations based upon, what kind of exposure they want to come within their own home, and what kind of exposure they want, for their for the whole ecosystem, where they're in. The ecosystem that we're in, we are in a very very technologically advanced ecosystem. And the way that we believe in spending time with our kids is, so spending time with our kids is about building bonds and about building connections, right? So we build bonds and build connections by stimulating certain set of hormones within the brain, right? So dopamine is one of them, serotonin is one of them, right? So the more dopamine and serotonin that you can, get your kids to release when they're with you, those are the memories, those are the good memories you start, creating. um, you know uh, it it might be right to say, it might not be right to say that maybe about 50 years ago, before the internet came in, people were happier, right? Well, maybe they weren't. Maybe people are happier now. Happiness has a lot to do with a set of hormones, dopamine and serotonin being one of them. And if you have a happy home, right, regardless of what kind of technologies are in there, you will always develop those really strong bonds between your families. And if you don't have those, if you don't work on quality time, then those memories will never be formed. So there's very little that AI or technology can do to create those bonds. It's something that you have to really work at yourself. So that's a very long-winded answer to a very short question.
I want to ask you as a follow-up. You said you lived in the US and Palo Alto and so on. It's been said that many of the tech gurus, people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, they have restricted their kids from using technology in their house. Even products that they themselves been building or software they have been building. What do you think about that? Do you see any perils in terms of technology, where AI is going? And what is the right balance? You spoke about quality time, creating memories. Of course, you can do it, as you said, maybe sitting down with your daughters and helping them, bouncing off ideas. And that's also educational. That's also teaching them about business and being entrepreneurial. And of course, that has its own value. Where do you think we should keep the balance for everybody watching, professionals, parents? Because as you're involved in education as well, the future generations are the ones that they're gonna live up with the choices we made today. So the future is made today. I want you to be critical and tell us and our listeners and viewers, what do you think are the perils? Are there any, or is everything going to go perfectly and there's goodwill and the future is bright ahead? Do you see any dark or question marks in the future that lies ahead?
I think that we would be blind if we don't see the perils. And I think we would be blind if we don't see the question marks. I think these question marks are there in every era. They were there in the era of my parents, they're there in the era of my grandparents, and they'll also be there in the era of my grandkids. I think it's all got to do with how you approach life. So coming back to the first part of your question, the big tech moguls, they restrict or discourage their kids. I think that a lot of this is tabloid news. I don't know if this is really the case, and I also don't know if I haven't gone into the homes of Bill Gates to see what his kids were using when they were growing up, although I think they're already old when the cell phones and everything came out. But coming back to the next part of your question, what are the perils? So the perils have got to do with lack of communication between the parents and the kids. So if the father is playing video games with their son, right, or their daughter, you're building some strong connections right over there, right? So you're using technology, but you're building strong connections, right? Now, when you leave your kids to be parented only by technology, that's when a lot of the perils start coming in. A lot of parents are focused on screen time, right? So we need to control the screen time. Well, how about we gives the right tools to the kids, so you don't necessarily need to regulate screen time. So screen time becomes a really big problem when the brain is not being stimulated or is being stimulated in the wrong way, right? So if the kids are constantly playing Candy Crush, right, on their phones, or if they're playing monotonous games, that's not really doing too much for the brain. But if they're playing, or if they're using all of the technology that's out there to do stuff that is constantly stimulating the brain, then that's a completely different route altogether. One of the things I must confess that I'm not too big a fan of, nor do I favor too much, is when we outsource dinner time to young kids to the phones. Right? That's where the trouble starts. So, but then in today's day and age, the child's best friend is the phone, because that's the first thing that they developed a strong connection with from the time that they left the hospital. Right, the parents just pass the phone over to the child, and and that's the solution. And so there are not enough studies that are done to understand if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But if I just look at it from an analytical standpoint, I think that there might be, slight health hazards to doing something, that early on. But hey, since there are no studies that are out there, your guess is as good as mine.
I must say, personally, I have a 9-year-old son. In the first 5 or 6 years of his life, I didn't even have the TV on in our house, so he was not exposed in any media. And then the problem started when they go to school, because it's also this peer pressure that my friends are using this, I need that. So it's inevitable, even though for 6 years he was so protecting my son. And of course, the parents can make all kinds of decisions and oppose their structures and rules in place. But inevitably, in the society, as you said, in this day and age, it's impossible to get away from certain things. Of course, with communication also, as you mentioned, it's important to have the trust of your child and so on, to have a good dialogue and rapport, that they trust that you want their best interest. Your daughters are pretty amazing. You said that they already, of course, following your footsteps, and as you very much well know, if you raised in such a household where you hear discussions, you meet people, it's inevitable that young children pick up the terminology, the nuances, and they go on and do amazing things. I want to stand now to the multicultural and international aspect. You are a foreigner, you're an international that travel the world. You come from a bicultural family even, and you've been traveling and living in different countries. Now you're living in Finland. What do you think about Finland? Is it a land of opportunity? Has Finland been good to you? Where do you think Finland is heading? Is Finland spearheading some innovation in AI, or should Finland do more in that field? And then tell us a little bit about your other projects in terms of the international community here in Finland. Lots to unpack, so feel free to open them up. How would you approach this international aspect and the work and the initiatives you do?
All right, wonderful. So opportunities are there everywhere, and it's entirely up to us to identify those opportunities and try to figure out how we can benefit from those opportunities. Now, as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking to solve problems, as I'd mentioned. When we moved to Finland, we saw lots of issues, as there are in any other place. And as detectives, our goal is to find issues, right? So that we can solve those issues. So Finland definitely, it's definitely one of the happiest places to be in, although some people might disagree. But if you go and live in other countries, then you'll be able to understand, the benefits that Finland has and offers.
Tell me
And
quickly,
also,
Salim, now I have to ask you, I believe this is a question on the lips or minds of our viewers as well. You as a foreigner in Finland, what are some good things and what are some bad things that need improvement?
okay. All right. So the good things, and again, for the stage that we are in our lives right now, the good thing for us, the best thing for us, is that our kids have so much independence and so much freedom. They are able to go out, they're able to hang out with their own friends, and we don't need to worry about them because number one, we've brought them up as good kids, so we know that they will always try to avoid any what we call heat spots. But we also know that from the external environment, there are very few things that we need to worry about because Finland is a very, very safe place. So that is one of the biggest advantages for us. So now, what are the problems with any place? If we take a look at Finland, there are so many problems, right? And as an immigrant entrepreneur, that actually becomes very interesting for me because then I can try to see, okay, you know what, this is a problem. Do I have a solution for this particular problem? So one of the problems that I noticed was that immigrant integration into Finland, or not only into Finland, but throughout the EU, was a very, very big issue. And one of the reasons why this was an issue is because when immigrants come to a new land, let's say Finland, and it's not only related to limited to Finland, it's a global phenomenon. But whenever they go to a new land, what they do is that they make a very, very big mistake. And the mistake is they go ahead and they start hanging out with in their own small little communities, and they don't take the opportunity to go out and experience the real culture from in the land where they're living or where they have moved to. And because they don't make the effort to assimilate, to integrate, right, the other person, regardless of how much money the city or the state is putting into immigrant integration, the thing needs to be from both ways. Now, in my observation, there definitely is a little bit of a bias towards one type of immigrant over the other, which is the case in any ecosystem, right? Forget about a country, but it's the case in any ecosystem. But the way that you break that bias is by assimilating into that particular culture. If you go into a new culture, it could be a culture from a different city, right? It might be in the same country, but you go into a culture of a different city, and if you actually open up yourself, and if you actually go into that culture with open arms, guess what? You will always receive a welcoming smile on the other end. So we saw that this was a big problem, right? And we noticed that one of the reasons why this problem was there is also because of the language barrier. If you're living in the NCR region, the region where you and I live, the problems are not that accentuated. But if you move further up north, then there definitely, is a language barrier issue that comes in. Since Finnish is not one of the easiest languages to learn, we've noticed that a lot of immigrants don't even make the effort. Again, that's not the right thing to do, right? But that's a problem that's there. Now, can we go out and can we start teaching people how to speak Finnish? Well, there are already so many people who are already doing that. So we said, okay, let's come up with a completely different solution, right? Let us come up with a solution whereby we use AI, we create a chatbot, and the immigrant can talk to that chatbot and
Here it
ask
is.
the question.
It's SUSAN.fi. I had a chance to chat a little bit with Susan the other day. I want to ask you, because I a little bit disagree regarding assimilation. We cannot resemble the host culture. We are who we are. We bring our unique values and behaviors. And of course, you need to respect the local and host culture. But I think the cultural pluralism and diversity brings a lot of benefits also to any society, whether you're a Greek like myself living in Finland or an Indian or Pakistani living in Finland. You have to choose the best of everything, as there's no perfect culture, right? Respectfully, I see it from that perspective. How do you tell us a little bit about SUSAN and what benefits you think it gives to people from all walks of life, from various cultures, learning and finding information about Finland and anything that's on their mind?
Yeah. So I want to begin by, agreeing with what you've just said, right? So plurality is very important for any culture to thrive. So when we, as immigrants, come into a new country, since we're in Finland, let's talk about Finland. If we come into Finland, we definitely bring our own spice, no pun intended, to the conversation. And then along with the spice, we also bring a whole host of opportunities, business opportunities from our backgrounds into the Finnish ecosystem as well, right? So we open the doors for trade, we open the doors for exchange of goods and services.
And that adds
this is
value to the local economy and international trade.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, since we've come over here, we've started bringing in lots of international businesses who we've worked with previously into Finland, and we've started showing them where the opportunities are. Now, the second part of your question was related to what SUSAN can do, right? And why we came up with this tool. Well, you see, when we came over here, we were very fortunate that we hired a consultant to help us, navigate. We hired they found us our residents. They helped, doing all the running around. But not everyone, has the opportunity to hire a consultant, right? So we said, okay, where do people really need a lot of help in, right? So they need to understand what is the DVV. They need to understand how to get their police ID. They need to understand, what the protocol is with enrolling their kids in school. They need to understand how, what is Kela and how that plays a role in their lives. They need to understand, what is if they're opening up their own business, what's Vero. They need to understand all of these different things. And one of the problems that immigrants have is that, again, because there's a communication barrier, they are very reluctant to go to the right agencies or the departments to really understand, what the issue might be, right? And talk to the individuals, right? So given that, we said, okay, all this information is readily available on the websites, but no one is actually going to these websites. Why aren't people going to these websites? Well, because it becomes very, very daunting to go to these websites, and then converting it from English to Finnish, and then you kind of get lost. It's like a whole big jungle that's out there. So we said, okay, how can we use AI to address this jungle? And what we did over here is that I'll go a little technical. We created a SLM, what's called a small language model, right? And we populated with an appropriate knowledge base, so it has all the information. Then we connected it with a RAG, which is a retrieval augmented generation, and an MCP, and to a large language model. Now, the whole system flows really well. Now you can ask a question. Right now you can ask a question in English, but tomorrow you'll be able to ask a question in Kurdish or in Arabic or in Hindi or in Bengali, right? And it will reply back in that particular manner as well. So what we've done is that we're trying to create a one window solution where the user is able to interact with this one chatbot, right? And that one chatbot will be able to provide you with whatever relevant information, with respect to, immigrant integration. So, from housing to, healthcare to education to now we're putting in a component which also starts identifying jobs that are, highly likely, good fits for immigrants.
Yeah. What kind of feedback have you gotten so far? How long has been SUSAN up and running?
So SUSAN is still in its beta mode. We launched it maybe a couple of months ago. I think we launched in January, and we did a first test bed in this beautiful city, about 60 kilometers north of Helsinki. It's called Riihimäki, and there were 71 immigrant students who attended this particular test bed, and they asked 644 questions in 4 categories, right? And these categories helped us understand what are the real immigrant problems. And the real immigrant problems over here in Finland is, number one, how do I find a job, right? Because jobs are very scarce right now, especially given the current economic conditions. Things are looking better in the future, but given the current situation, it's this is one of the biggest concerns for immigrants. The second concern for the immigrants is understanding how to find affordable housing, especially for students, because that's where we went to. The third thing over here is the work permits and the legalization. So the laws in Finland are constantly changing, and because the immigrants don't have the right information, they start panicking for reasons where there is no need to panic. And all they need to have is access to the right information. And then go ahead.
Allow me to share here. Here is Susan. Let's ask Susan a question. I've asked the question, how can I find a job in Finland? And then it says, to find a job in Finland, you can follow these steps. I don't know if you can see. Let me zoom a little bit more in. Yes, identify your job interest, update your CV, use this portals, LinkedIn, and then it says the TE-palvelut, the official employment service in Finland, the employment services network, and so on. So what other question we can ask to Susan?
Okay, so we're working on a new feature. Do you see the yellow briefcase at the bottom icon?
Yeah.
So if you click on that, right? So this is this is not necessarily live yet, but it'll work. Okay. Right. So if you click on that, you can click on find a job.
Let me put on spotlight the screen so the viewers can see it. This is live now. I'm going into Susan. I'm asking some questions. So now I should click on find a job?
Yeah, find a job. And what would you like a job in? I don't know. Teaching, sales, or whatever. Okay, journalist.
Journalist.
Yeah, and then I can put in Helsinki.
Or should I put maybe marketing? Is quite a thing. I don't know if many. Marketing manager in Helsinki.
Okay. Now, if you scroll down, but don't press anything yet. Do you see where it says upload your resume? Don't upload anything, right? But this is still in the works. But when you upload your resume, what we realized, again, we're being a problem solver. What we realized is that, people don't really have the right resume, right, in the right format of what the employers are looking for. So this is still under construction, but when it's released, you'll be able to upload your resume. And when you upload your resume, our AI will reconfigure, reformat the resume in a manner whereby it will be appealing to the HR manager. So all of a sudden, we will be increasing the likelihood of your resume reaching the eyes of the HR manager, not being lost in the sea of resumes that are being sent out.
So this is coming. Should I click on search jobs?
Sure. Let's see what happens. I hope it doesn't embarrass. So it takes a little while to do all of its thinking. And then what it's doing right now is that it's searching the web for all relevant jobs that are out there, and it will start bringing you jobs in batches. So if the jobs might come from LinkedIn, they might come from Indeed, they might come from any other platforms, whatever Susan's whatever is rapidly accessible. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's give it some time. Hopefully, this is a good indicator. There's a lot of marketing jobs in the market in Helsinki. Let's see here. Yes. Now let me share my screen again. What SUSAN.fi has found for us. Let me share back on the stream. Here is what's going on. It keeps writing. So here we have a list of LinkedIn jobs, it says, and marketing manager. Let me zoom in a bit more.
And we've made it really easy. So all you need to do is just click on apply.
So you click here Should I go ahead and
Do you
click?
see
So
where it says apply?
so this is a hyperlink. Yeah, it opens my LinkedIn. Of course, I'm only sharing one page. And as you see, these are blue. So these are hyperlinks and apply. You can go straight to the apply page. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 12 jobs at least, 12 marketing jobs. So if you're listening and you are a marketing person living here in Finland and you're looking for your next marketing opportunity, go to SUSAN.fi, click those links and apply, find yourself a good marketing job. Good. Something else, some new developments now, Saleem, that you have regarding SUSAN. What's coming up in the roadmap?
So we're going to start going to places where the immigrants kind of congregate. So we're going to go to small little communities. We're going to go to churches. We're going to go to mosques and temples, and we're going to listen. Right. So one of the easiest ways to solve a problem is to identify what the problem really is. A lot of people, they kind of sit in their own shells and they think that they know what the problem is, but you don't know the problem until you actually go out there, right? So once you go out there and start talking to people and then start asking them questions and you start probing and probing and probing, that's the time when you realize what the real true nature of the problem is.
That's why you need a journalist in your team to ask the questions, because people are afraid to ask the right questions and they're afraid to be bold and really, as we say in Finland, to put the cat on the table, to ask the difficult questions, the questions that, they will be embarrassed, or I don't know, maybe they don't know how to say. Go for it. So Saleem, you're very right. I agree with you. Asking the right question, being brave to ask the right question, hearing it from the people, the users, the community, that's the best way. You have to know what is the problem before you offer the right tailor-made solution for that. Sometimes people think they know, but they don't, unless you really go to the grassroots level and ask, and you might be surprised even, and new things are, and of course, talking about engagement also of your community is very important. Talking to people, making them really being heard, feeling valued and appreciated, and that's when solving the real problems, right? Because as you said, you've been privileged to live in a certain family with certain background. Of course, every family has its own issues, right? But some people might not be have had the possibilities or the opportunity. So we have to see what everybody is facing, unless we make very specific solution for specific homogeneous audience. But as you know, nowadays, and you want the solution to be available for everybody, right? People are so diverse. They come from all walks of life. They're PhD students who've been brought on a promise that they find a great job in Finland and they end up unemployed, right? We have a lot of international talent that unfortunately, and that's based on facts and data, there have been public information, unfortunately, in Finland, that there is racism, having a foreign name in your CV, since we're talking about employability. It's a turnoff for some employers, unfortunately. It doesn't matter how great track record you have, what PhDs you're having, what value you can add. Unfortunately, there are lots of barriers for the international community. So thank you for creating such solutions. And you were telling about finding the problems. What problems, and now you said coming up, do you have any sort of suspicions or assumptions what could be, or if you want to be open and listen? Oh, of course, you have your own network of friends. I mean, that you might be getting already the signals.
Yeah. So the majority of the immigrants, they are struggling to assimilate. Right. So we go specifically to the areas or the locations where we are finding people who are struggling to assimilate. Now, you can be struggling to assimilate regardless of what your income level is, right? And those are the key areas that we really want to focus on. And one of the biggest problems which they are talking about is issues with respect to unemployment. Now, I'm not a magician. I can't wave a magic wand and find areas of employment or create jobs. But what I can do is say, okay, you know what? You have studied in Finland. You are a software engineer, or you are a nurse, or you are some other skilled profession. If you can't find a job in Finland, maybe you can find a job in Germany. Maybe you can find a job in Turkey. Maybe you can find a job in Malaysia or Istanbul or any other place. So just because you cannot find a job in the location that you're in, and that is your biggest problem, that doesn't mean that the world has closed for you. Right. So what we hope to do through SUSAN is also open up other markets for immigrants. Right. So it could be a neighboring market, as close as Sweden or Estonia, or it could be something a little further. It could be something in Malta. It could be something in Portugal and Spain, because different economies are operating at a different pace. So while some economies are going through their own correction measures, there are other economies that are actually thriving. For example, in the Middle East, the economies are thriving. I believe that in East Asia, the economies are doing better than what the economies in Europe are doing. So movement of talent is something that we have been working. We've been working in the talent space since 2007. So our first two startups that we exited from, that we sold, were in the talent and skill assessment space. So we know this space really well. And sometimes there's a lot of benefit in moving if you're stuck in one place. There's a
Sorry to interrupt you. What do you think about entrepreneurship? You are yourself a serial entrepreneur. It comes natural to you. Of course, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Do you think, however, that people in Finland and in any part of the world, as you said, if they're struggling to be employed, should they look into entrepreneurship? Is this a way, as you said, now with AI, maybe it's a way to democratize even the business ideas and the content creation, and maybe that's the positive side of AI, that perhaps, as your daughters, for instance, young girls, preteen and teen girls, so they've been even able to create a worth mentioning products. And what do you think about entrepreneurship? And tell us a little bit about SUSAN. How big is the team? Are you an entrepreneur that has hired other people? Because in Finland, it is said that entrepreneurs with international background are contributing greatly to the Finnish economy by creating even jobs for others. So tell a little bit about your entrepreneurial spirit and SUSAN and the team behind SUSAN.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by addressing the challenges of entrepreneurship, right? Now, as immigrants, something, we are already entrepreneurs, because we left the comfort of our homes, we left our loved ones, we left our families, we left the place that we grew up in, right? And we came to a land that we probably never was the first time that we visited, right? That takes a lot of guts. Oh my goodness, to move from your own comfort zone into something completely new, where the people are new, where the language is new, where the culture is completely new, right? And I mean, you try comparing the Finnish culture to the Indian culture, or to the Malaysian culture, or to the Turkish or the Greek culture, or to the African culture. It's completely different. It's night and day. Right, the way that we in these other countries get things done and the way things get done in Finland is completely different. So
there might be similar
everyone,
values. I think as a Greek living in Finland, of course, there's some European values that are the foundation, but you're right, the cultural differences, even in very in close
yeah,
proximity countries like Finland and Estonia or Finland and Sweden,
yeah,
even those
yeah,
could be alone countries with
yeah,
big geographic distance.
yeah,
So we are already brave, you're saying. So
yeah,
immigrants are already survival entrepreneurs. They're strong, they're
yeah,
brave, they're
yeah.
taking
So
risks.
they've
You're
made
a
this,
risk taker.
yeah. So they have already taken the risk. They've already made this really big entrepreneurial move, right?
It's a
Don't
giant
stop
leap.
here. Yeah, don't stop here. If you've already made this huge leap, then there's so much more that you can do, right? A lot of times entrepreneurs think, or immigrants or individuals think, oh, I can't do business. I don't know the first thing about business,
Mm.
right? Can I tell you something? Survival, learning how to survive in an ecosystem which is completely new to you, you're already an entrepreneur. And if you've learned how to survive in this new ecosystem, right, then you are, 90% all the way to becoming an entrepreneur. The next thing you just need to do is you need to just figure out what is it that you want to sell, right? And sell something that the market really needs, or the market really wants. Okay, and just sell it at a price whereby you're able to bring money home. A lot of times people come up with ideas that are so complicated, just so big, all over the place. Oh, we'll do this, just all over the place, and they're not really thinking about how much are they selling their service for, right? And when they're selling their service, a lot of times the problem happens when they don't price it properly. If they price it too high, no one buys. If they price it too low, then they become, a slave to the business, right? And the other,
What is
go
it
ahead.
in for Susan? Are you planning to put a price tag on Susan? Are you now using the collective intelligence of the people, asking the chatbot questions? How do you want to, are you planning to capitalize on this project, or what are the future regarding Susan?
Okay, so this is a very interesting question, and there's so many people who have asked me this question, and I really honestly don't have an answer, because Susan, for me, is a labor of love. So I'm at the stage in my life where financially we are settled. Our kitchen is running, right? Whether we work or not. So I believe that if the universe has given me this opportunity, that I don't necessarily need to worry about, my kitchen expenses, then, and I like to solve problems, let me try to solve a very, very big problem of someone who is struggling, right? And if I'm able to solve their problem, I think that the reward will come for me later on. Now, this is not something that I would advise first-time entrepreneurs. My situation is different. I don't necessarily need to, bring money home at the end of the day, right? But so in the situation that I'm in, it gives me a lot of pleasure to see how we can build a tool that can really, really help others. So Susan, so we're not storing anyone's data, right? We're no data is being stored. Nothing is. The conversation that you're having with Susan is completely anonymous. We don't believe in what my kids call surveillance capitalism. So we're never going to be selling this particular data. A lot of people have asked me, what's our business model? And in this particular stage in our lives, especially with Susan, I'm very proud to say that we're not necessarily focusing on the business model right now.
Mhm.
We're focusing on really genuinely helping others solve their problems.
Is this
And then,
financed entirely from your pocket? You said is it labor of love, or is it some a project involving the Finnish authorities, or is it just your contribution, the legacy you want to leave personally behind?
so this will become a commercial venture at some point in time. We don't know what that point in time will be, and I don't know if I'm going to be running this, when that point in time comes. Right now, this is something where it's a challenge for both my wife and myself, right? Because there are lots of people within our own community, within the Indian and the Pakistani community, who are really, really, really going through a bad time right now. With the kind of layoffs that are happening, right? With people being very uncertain as to what their livelihoods are going to look like. They have mortgages, they have, bills, and so many other things to pay. And Finland is not a place where you can have a lot of savings. Lots of people have lots of our friends who came over here as students. They're not able to find jobs, so there's very little that Kela can do for them. So our focus right now is to really genuinely, wholeheartedly take care of our communities. Right now, I'm an international citizen, so the African community is my community, the Asian community is my community. So if you're an immigrant, then I'm yours and you are mine. That's how I look at it. And my goal right now is to really, really try to understand what the problem is, understand how we can solve it, and one step at a time, one day at a time, I guess.
Good. How long do you plan to stay in Finland? You said that you have a habit of hopping countries. Do you know how long you're here for? Or are you planning to settle in Finland?
I believe that we only settle once we are 6 feet under. So that's the only time that
Let's
that we will
close
settle.
with this positive.
Yeah. So we love Finland. It's one of the nicest places that we have lived in. Is this going to be our final destination? I don't know. Only time will tell.
All right. How many people work for SUSAN? Do you have developers? Tell us a little bit about the team behind SUSAN.
Okay. So because we are self-funded, we have to utilize our capital very, very wisely. So there's a team of 20 individuals who are working. Most of them are working part-time. Some are consultants. Some are, a couple of them are on our payroll. But because the cause is something that really touches a lot of people, because they can feel that if it doesn't help them, it'll definitely help someone who's next to them. We have received a lot of goodwill, a lot of support from people who are, especially in the tech field, who are volunteering their time. And
are those people working remotely, or are they Finland-based, or
remote.
it depends?
So some of them are Finland-based, most of them are not, but everyone is working remotely. And we're just, my wife Aisha and I, we are just really, truly, truly blessed that the outpour of support that has come from the community at large, the global community, is something that we did not expect. And I think that because we're genuine to this particular cause, others are also genuine, to this cause. And everyone understands that there's no commercial benefit to us. We've not thought about that just yet. Once we do think about that, then that's a completely different, that'll be a completely different time, but we're not thinking about the commercial element right now. We're just trying to figure out, okay, what can we do to solve problems? So, a nurse who came to Finland, who studied over here for, X number of years, got the certification, but is not able to find a job, even though the nursing jobs are so needed, right? But the budgets are not there. What should that person do? Well, that person should, let's try to see how we can find you a job in another part of Finland. If you can't find you a job in another part of Finland, let's see how we can find you a job in Sweden or in Norway, so that you're able to feed your family. So when we think along those lines, I believe it's good karma, right? And there are lots of families who we are trying to help. Some, and I guess sometimes when they say a prayer, say a prayer for us as well, and that's why we're chugging along.
Great.
Yeah.
So problem solver, risk taker, Saleem Qureshi was with me. Thank you so much, Saleem, for your time and wisdom and insights. Everybody, check out his website, Saleem.fi and SUSAN.fi, the AI chatbot, to ask questions and help you figure things out here in Finland and hopefully beyond. So thank you so much, Saleem, and all the best to all your initiatives, to your amazing, intelligent family and your girls taking after you and your legacy. So thank you for being on the show, and thank you for being in Finland, doing all the good work you're doing already.
And thank you for having me on the show. And we are rooting for you for your upcoming election. And we wish you a lot of success. And when you win, not if you win, but when you win, we will throw a really big party for you at our place. How about
I need 400 votes to get in the Espoo City Council. I didn't want to mention it. Thank you for bringing it up. Unfortunately, you're in the wrong city. We have to move you.
But we will call all of our friends and tell them, your number. It's 837, right?
387.
Oh, there you go, 387.
Thank you so much. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. This is Connections Unplugged, and I will see you next Wednesday at 11 o'clock Finnish time with another inspirational guest, and we have a chance to pick their brains and get to know them on a personal and at a professional level as well. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.